Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished entrepreneur from Abu Dhabi, UAE, Priya Nair. Priya, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. A pleasure.
Thank you. Priya is the partner and CEO of Doukani LLC. She's an author of a book titled Formula G, Scale Your Startup to a Growth Machine. And she's also the founder of ZWAG, Swag.
That's right.
Priya, before we start talking about Doukani and your book, tell me about your journey from a technical writer to a CEO and author.
Well, I would say that it was quite an eventful journey. When I was a teen, I was very ambitious and I knew exactly what I wanted from my life. I had it all planned out, or so I thought at that point. So right after my 10th grade, I decided that I wanted to get into the Indian civil services. So I picked social sciences for my pre-university, and for my graduation, I did economics. So right after my graduation, I went to Delhi to prepare for the civil services. And I was, in fact, disappointed when I didn't make it in my first attempt. But I also didn't want to invest another year exclusively to prepare for the examination. So what I did was I joined for my master's in journalism. That was kind of my backup plan, change the world, being a journalist. But then by the end of master's, however, a lot was at stake. I wanted to marry the love of my life. And at that point, I felt that if I had the financial independence, I would be kind of able to convince my parents of the choice of my partner, So getting into a steady, well-paid job at that point became a priority. And I was a topper in the university in my master's. So I got picked from the campus by TATA Consultancy Services as a technical writer. So I would say my first choice of job was not really the preferred one. But also it surprised a lot of my friends and family that I would take up a corporate job. They saw me as a very promising civil servant or a journalist, but definitely life had other plans.
Correct.
2005, I got married. In 2006, I moved to the UAE. And here I joined the UAE Air Force and Air Defense, again, as a technical writer. So I couldn't kind of switch jobs even then. Then 4 years later, I joined an American engineering consultancy. And I would say the 10 years that I was there in this engineering firm were by far the best, because I learned a lot from there, the professionalism, about the importance of diversity and inclusion, how to manage a team, and so much more. And my career grew leaps and bounds. I joined the company as a specification writer. I became a project coordinator, a bid manager, and I left last year. When I left, I was the regional lead for the bids and strategy team.
Amazing.
So yeah, that is
fascinating. Fascinating. And then what came first, your book or your venture Doukani? Because then I'll ask you the questions accordingly.
Okay. So I started writing, let's say the book was published the same month. I took up the role at Doukani.
So therefore, I have a choice. So let me start with your business venture, Doukani, which I'm assuming, maybe rightly or wrongly, comes from the word Dukan, which is shop. Okay, so I'm right then. So tell me a little bit about this venture and your motivation to start it, given the fact that your background was in technology or the technical writer.
Yes, interesting, isn't it? I've made some very different choices in my life. Doukani, to be honest, is not my brainchild. I just joined last year as a CEO and partner. Doukani was founded by two Lebanese brothers. In 2016, when the classified side was the rage, they started it as a side hustle. And then they moved it to be a B2C marketplace. So, following the pandemic, the director board felt that it was time to step up the game, and they wanted someone to be the face of the business, someone who could take it to the next level. And that's how I was brought in. And by then, I had also kind of written the book, though it was just about published, Formula G. And I had also been mentoring as part empowering entrepreneurs. I was out there on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I had my own channel called Startup with Priya. I used to do WhatsApp with Priya talk shows back then. So I joined as a partner and CEO in November last year. Now Doukani is an exclusive B2B platform that connects suppliers with corporate offices and everything that you need to run an office smoothly and back of house. That is what Doukani does. And our ambition, I would say, is to become one of the top 5 brands, homegrown brands in the UAE by 2025.
Wow. And you said it's a B2B
yes,
platform.
That's right.
And handling all kinds of products, or?
It is mostly office supplies, cleaning supplies, pantry, condiments. Our ideal clients are offices, schools, educational institutions, labor camps, and hotels, restaurants, and cafes.
Interesting. And how do you see Doukani as a competitor to the brick-and-mortar retail business?
Okay, let's look at it as in the broader sense, not just Doukani, but e-commerce industry in general. It has affected and changed a lot. I would say that brick and mortar has been inspired by the e-commerce industry. And why I'm saying is that in the recent times, the one of the biggest challenges that the brick and mortar have faced is decreasing footfall, right? People not walking into their retail spaces. And I think one of the biggest solution for that is to learn and adopt the e-commerce strategies. We already see the brick and mortar adopting a lot of e-commerce strategies, I would say. For example, omni-channel sales and marketing. That is the brick and mortar extending their business online and shop online, but collect at the store. You see, especially I see that the Gen Zers like this option a lot because they save on the delivery charges and they can also instantly try them on and return or get the refunds. Another change that I've seen the brick and mortar kind of imitating or mirroring for good that the e-commerce does is bringing the virtual and the physical spaces together. That is store virtual try-ons through display panels and things like that. Cashier-less checkouts, self-checkouts. A lot of retail stores are doing that. And I think going forth, you will also see a lot of these brick and mortar stores just using their shop front as display stores. They would just display a few sample products for the shoppers to touch and feel and explore, and then they can just scan the code and get the product delivered at home. So we definitely are seeing e-commerce. We are seeing the e-commerce industry as such having positive influence on the retail stores, and they're changing for good, I believe.
Fascinating. So Priya, now let's talk a little bit about your book, Formula G: Scale Your Startup to a Growth Machine. Before I ask you any questions, is this book available on Amazon?
It is. Amazon India, Amazon.com, Amazon.ae.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to check it out, and I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to check out your book.
Thank you.
But tell me about your book and what was the hypothesis that you used for writing it?
Formula G was actually the result of long conversations that I had with my co-authors. They're accomplished C-suite executives with more than 20 years of experience. And I was mentoring pre-startups and aspiring entrepreneurs at that point. So we used to have very interesting exchanges. And we were like, people know about Apple and big companies, how they do it and how they make it, their processes. But what about small businesses? How did we do it? How can they do it? What are the real challenges they have? And how can they scale if they don't have the resources that the big companies don't have? And we have captured all these in 10 chapters in that book, And it was published in November and quickly became one of the bestsellers in that small enterprises category. I would say that the book is a bridge between an MBA and real world of startups. As I said, it talks about the right mindset, offers some tools. It talks about some of the success companies, not the big ones, but the small ones that have done it right. And you can take these 10 chapters as a system and implement it and grow your business. So Some of the impressive conversations we have is about inverted organization chart, bottom-up approach, 360-degree mentoring, so on and so forth.
Wonderful. So when you must have been writing your book, you must have spoken to many, many entrepreneurs. My question to you is, what, in your opinion, are the most important qualities a startup entrepreneur or a startup founder should have?
Interesting. I would say I would like to talk from two aspects. One is in terms of mindset, and another in terms of the skill set. Yeah. In terms of mindset, I would say a sense of adventure. And you have to be passionate to depth about your purpose, your company, your core values. Have a strong mind, willingness to learn and unlearn a lot of things. Accept failure and rejections, patience and perseverance. The startup, especially initial years of an entrepreneur's journey, is hard. So one has to have the willingness to do the hustle and the hard work. In terms of skill sets, I would say one has to have a broad idea of every aspect of your business, but specific and a deep idea about your product, your market, your customers, your growth strategy. While these are all that I call the positive attributes an entrepreneur should have, I think it is also very important to have or to know when to let go. Now, when I say this, it is not only in terms of when to exit your business, but it also, if you see and know that something is not working, you should not be afraid to shut it down and move on or try something else. A lot of people fail because they are not really willing to adapt or move on.
Very interesting. And it is often said that a lot of startups don't make it. In fact, the statistics that is thrown around is only 1 in 10 make it. Based again on your conversation with so many business or startup founders, what are the 3 top reasons why startups don't make it?
I would say 3 top reasons would be starting too soon, starting too late, the end of the spectrum, and also not having the sight of the bigger picture. Let me explain. Starting too soon is what I mean is that not doing enough research. On the market or the target audience, the need for product or the service, whether the market really needs that product or service. A lot of people start up because they want that freedom, freedom from the 9-to-5 job, or just because they think that they have a brilliant idea, or just because they need a side hustle. So, but they don't realize that entrepreneurship is real serious business.
Correct.
Another reason that I said is starting too late. Once you have zeroed in on your niche and you have found the right product market fit, I would say do not wait for perfect timing or even to perfect your product. It is important to take the product to market and test it out, even if it is in form of a website, build a wait list, or a minimum viable product. If you wait too long, someone else might do something similar, or the technology or the market forces might make your solution or product redundant. So waiting too long to launch your product and then going ahead with it anyway, despite knowing that it might not work, that's also one reason that startups fail. The third one, as I said, not having the sight of the bigger picture, which is like not having a strategy to scale or grow, not having the right team. All of this affects your cash flow and revenue. So it's not just enough to start up. It's important to build a sustainable startup.
Fantastic. Great response. Thank you. So my next question to you is, and it's a $1 million question, often been asked to me, and I've often asked people, should a startup entrepreneur bootstrap as long as they can, or should they raise money as soon as it's available?
So, see, there is no hard and fast rule about the timing of raising money. What I think. If you have a great concept and idea and you are unable to bootstrap on your own, then you could go for pre-seed funding, right? If you can self-finance to a certain extent up to MVP, then wait, and then you are able to show some traction, you go for seed funding at that stage. You're absolutely right, Ashutosh. We see a lot of startups raise funds at an early stage or, or at an MVP stage as well. But personally, I agree that the longer you can wait to raise funds, the better.
Mm.
What you can do, meanwhile, is to try attending pitch competitions and try getting grants instead of raising money and letting go of your equity. Now, why I say this is that fundraising is hard. It's a hard phase, especially in the early stages, deciding your valuation, what you're worth, and how much equity that you are willing to offer to your investors. This is one reason that it is not advisable to raise funds in the earlier stages, because you don't know the proper valuation of your company.
Correct.
So the question is, are you giving away too much too early, or are you leaving money on the table? Nothing is clear at that point, right? So I would say wait until you see some traction, some revenue, and raise a Series A.
Wonderful. Wonderful. The other question, which is often a dilemma for startup founders, is at what stage should they start to scale up? Because once they've raised money, then the pressure is on to go national, go pan-India, go global, etc., etc. What are your thoughts?
I think when you start seeing consistent traction, when you have enough repeat customers and you have a steady cash flow for at least a couple of quarters, at that point, you can start scaling. If you have the appetite, if there is a market demand for that, you should start scaling, is what I would say. And it's that point that you know that your business is steady and ready to scale. And one thing I would add is that before you scale up, make sure that you have a robust process, you have the systems and tools in place, because this will help you manage the change that is inevitable that will come along with scaling up, right? So you just have to be mindful of all these things before you decide to scale up.
Very interesting. So let's now move on. When I was reading about you and what you sent to me, you say women leaders are asked to leave their crown in the garage.
Yeah.
Please explain this to me with an example.
Okay, it is actually what Indira Nooyi's mother told her one day. You know, she was the CEO of PepsiCo then, and she walks in one day, and her mom says that, you might be a successful entrepreneur, whatever, but when you come home, you are a mother. That's your priority. Your family is your priority. And to me, it is an example of how patriarchy kind of affects career choices of ambitious people. How the system, the society, the employers kind of fail women and force women to drop out of the workforce. We have found questions asked to Sania Mirza, Williams sisters, female actors, entrepreneurs, the questions that would not generally be asked to their male counterpart,
Correct.
From experience, I can tell you that the fight isn't equal. Opportunities aren't equal, pay isn't equal, exposure that the male and the female leaders get are not equal. So to me, women being asked to leave their crown in the garage embodies the kind of patriarchal system that forced women to fit into the societal definitions of successful women, fulfilled women, and things like that. I joke to my friends saying that, even if you go out to the space and finished mission in space, you come back and people would ask you, by the way, when you're away, who takes care of your kids? So that is a reality, and I want women to overcome all that.
Well said. Well said. But Priya, do you think this is cultural or is this similar across the whole world?
I don't think it is cultural. I believe it is universal because I've had conversations with my peers and friends from around the world. This is a common theme. We have all been asked this question in varying degrees and varying forms, but this is a common theme, and this is something that bonds us, I believe, and binds us in the fight for diversity, inclusion, and also for more women leaders to get into the directorial boards and C-suites. So that's where the sisterhood is so important.
Very interesting. And yet there is a lot of work happening on DEI across the whole world. Do you think it is at a pace that you would like, or do you think it can be accelerated?
Definitely accelerated. We have won some battles. The fight is on, the war is on. I remember when I used to go to college, we used to have the same discussions on women empowerment. We need more women as leaders, and so forth. 20, 25 years hence, we are again still having that discussion.
Correct.
I'm sure 10 years down the line, we'll be telling young ladies the same thing. So definitely the pace has to be accelerated. And also one thing is a lot of companies just do D&I just for the sake of doing that. It's called pink washing or there are other terms. There's this interesting analogy that says that diversity is about being invited to a party, but inclusion is about being asked to dance. So they are two different things. A lot of women form part of this diversity drive, but how many of us are really being included? CCUs in the leadership discussions, in the directorial boards, and so on and so forth. So even the discussion around break the bias and D&I also have to kind of evolve and change, is what I think.
Fascinating. Priya, we have time for one more question, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation.
Sure.
What would you say, based on your amazing journey, that you've shared with us, the multiple things that you are doing, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away?
One, definitely, we need strong female leaders at the top. In the boardrooms at leading levels. I want women listening to us today to work towards getting into the C-suite and into the boardrooms. We can definitely drive positive changes for women and for society in general. That's one thing. Another thing is, if I can do it, you can do. And when I say this, I'm very much aware that I come from a very privileged position, be it class, society, education, financial position. But if you compare to a lot of people out there, I am just ordinary, So when I say that, what I did differently was to make bold decisions, stick to my decisions, work outside my comfort zone, so on and so forth. So if I can do it, anything is possible, right? You can do it too. And third, more important thing is to just be kind, to support each other. Entrepreneurship is not easy. It is hard, especially for female entrepreneurs. If you know someone, if you have a friend who has just started a business, support them, be a customer, be an investor if you can, or simply spread the word, and the hot C word these days is not competition, but collaboration. So live, thrive, lift others up, and grow together.
Wonderful. What a great conversation. Priya, on that note, and your 3 excellent lessons, support strong female leaders. And you said so rightly, if I can do it, you can do it. Take bold decisions. And the third one is be kind and support one another, because entrepreneurship is not an easy job or an easy journey. Thank you so much, Priya, for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about your book, about Doukani, and your amazing journey.
My pleasure.
Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.